Hello everyone and welcome back to Xbox Nation. My name is Fletcher and today we'll be covering the Xbox news that has been going on over the past week. It has been a pretty chunky week in terms of Xbox news. Everything from some high profile Xbox Game Pass games releasing, the announcement that Forza Horizon 5 is going to PS5, Phil Spencer discussing Xbox plans, and some awesome updates of some of our favourite games. With that out of the way, make sure you subscribe down below and let's dive straight into our first bit of news. We started this week with a pretty big announcement on the development of Gears of War E-Day. It has been announced today by development studio People Can Fly that the company is partnering with the Coalition on the upcoming prequel that's set to arrive sometime in 2025 or 2026. You may remember the name People Can Fly. That's because of the 2022 Xbox Game Pass title Outriders or perhaps 2011's Bulletstorm. But honestly, it's more than likely because the studio actually developed Gears of War Judgment back in the day. Here's what the team had to say in a statement earlier this week. We are honoured to return to the world of Gears of War, a franchise deeply embedded in our studio's history. As lead developer of the iconic Gears of War Judgment and co-development partner on Gears 1 to 3, we have always been passionate about the series and its legacy. Honestly, this sounds like such a very exciting prospect, and the only thing that would have made it better is a hint on when we can expect more details on this game, but alas, that really wasn't meant to be. We probably won't hear more about this game until the summer showcase later this year. In terms of a release date though, I have mentioned in the past how Gears of War E-Day has been rumoured for a 2025 launch in the past, but somewhat it feels unlikely now considering how busy Xbox first party slate appears to be for this year. You'll have to stay tuned for more info and we'll drop it when we hear more. With Team Xbox embarking on a major multi-platform push these days, there's been some concern in the community that without focusing on first party exclusives, that Xbox may essentially lose part of its identity and appeal in the process. This was actually brought up in Phil Spencer's couple of interview appearances last week, with both Gamertag Radio and Destin Legiri taking slightly different angles on pretty much the same question. The former of the two actually questioned why Xbox hardware will remain important if exclusives become less of a priority in 2025 and beyond. In response, Spencer explained that it's the work going into the hardware that will drive the appeal, with the team working across everything from consoles to handhelds and Xbox Cloud Gaming to provide the best possible experience. I will chuck a snippet of this interview on screen now.
Yeah, I want people to pick hardware based on the capabilities of that hardware and how that fits into the choices they want to make about where they want to play. And we want our hardware to win based on the hardware capabilities that we have. I think the difference that we've seen in the last 20 years, and I think this is good because I come from building games, it's really game first, not platform first.
I know many have actually covered the multitude of interviews that have been given over the past year, but one thing has always been at the forefront, and that Spencer has spoke more in these interviews about how hardware remains a critical part of Xbox and how his team will continue to ship more games on PlayStation and beyond in the future. There's obviously controversy that does surround all of this, particularly when it comes to exclusives, but clearly Microsoft feels the multi-platform approach makes best sense, not only from a monetary perspective, but also from an industry one. We'll have to see how this one shakes out, but for now it's definitely a conflicting image that Xbox definitely needs to resolve for the sake of its fan base. In addition to these interviews, we had a bit more information on this Xbox Series S. Ever since the console was released back in 2020, we've heard very occasionally from developers who have had a tough time getting their games onto it. Baldur's Gate 3 was the most high-profile example to date. In fact, during that saga, it was mentioned that Xbox had parity clauses in place for both the Xbox Series S and the Xbox Series X, which essentially meant that a game's features needed to be the same on both consoles. A one-off exception was eventually made for Baldur's Gate 3, which saw local split screen being ditched from the Xbox Series S version at launch. However, speaking in an interview with Destin Legiri this week, the Microsoft gaming CEO dismissed the idea of removing this parity clause entirely, suggesting instead that the Xbox Series S has become more important than ever for developers to target because of the wide variety of devices that are actually available on the market these days. There are obviously some Xbox fans that are in favour of dropping this parity clause for the Xbox Series S, but we also very much understand Phil's point here, and the handheld situation means it kind of feels pointless to remove at this point. If developers want their games to be accessible to the likes of the Nintendo Switch 2, Steam Deck, Asus ROG Ally, and even others, they're going to need to target the Series S spec anyway, or just something close to it. So it doesn't make any sense on Xbox's part to remove the parity clause for a console, especially when they're planning to build a handheld of their own. On the topic of the Xbox Series S and Baldur's Gate 3, it has now been revealed that the Xbox Insider Hub is getting 3 playtests this week, with the first being for the monster success that is Baldur's Gate 3, and the other 2 being for a couple of upcoming 2025 releases. In the case of Baldur's Gate 3, this is a stress test for patch 8, which means you'll need to own the game already in order to take advantage. Assuming that's the case, you can check out loads of cool features ahead of time, including crossplay with other platforms, photo mode, new subclasses, and a whole bunch of other things. In fact, this will even mark the debut of Splitscreen for Baldur's Gate 3 on the Xbox Series S. I'll chuck up on screen now how you download the Baldur's Gate 3 stress test via the Xbox Insider Hub, and this will launch sometime later today. You will be able to install the patch 8 stress test when you're redirected to the Microsoft Store, but keep in mind that this stress test is accessible via a totally different version of Baldur's Gate 3, which means you will need to re-download it via the specific Microsoft Store page. The next one is also a much talked about Xbox Game Pass release, which is 33 Immortals. For this one, you'll want to follow the same instructions as the Baldur's Gate 3 stress test, and after which you'll be directed to the Microsoft Store to download the free playtest. Then you'll have until the 7th of February to enjoy the game on both the Xbox Series X and S and also PC. The only caveat to be aware of though is that limited space is available, so it's best to hit the join button as soon as possible so you don't miss out. Then finally, we've got another one that's just snuck in at the end here. From January 28th to the 3rd of February, the Xbox Insider Hub is also hosting a beta for War Robots Frontiers, which is a free-to-play online mech shooter arriving this year. In the last beta, there were 3 modes that you can check out in the form of Team Deathmatch, Last Robot Standing, and Warp Rush, and crossplay is also supported with other platforms, which should ensure a healthy player base. Definitely check these 3 out if you haven't done so already. Now, Sony has unveiled the latest entry in the beloved MLB Show series this week, and the surprising part from this reveal though, on an Xbox perspective, is that MLB The Show 25 will not be part of the Xbox Game Pass library when it launches on the 18th of March. The company simply stated that the game will not be available on platform subscription services in 2025, which actually marks it as the first time ever since the series arrived on Xbox in 2021. In terms of what to expect in the game itself, we don't have many details right now, but it has been confirmed that the first gameplay trailer will arrive on the 4th of February. It remains to be seen how long MLB The Show 24 will actually remain on Xbox Game Pass currently, but it'll probably still be removed around March time. In other words, definitely enjoy your last bit of MLB The Show on Game Pass while you can. At this point, I would hate to quell anyone's excitement around World of Warcraft potentially coming to console, but if you end up seeing a newsletter that suggests it's on its way at some point, you're safe to assume that this was a mistake on Xbox's part. You can see an example of this email on screen now that was sent out to Xbox fans, and it clearly puts a console symbol next to World of Warcraft and actually references the game as being part of Game Pass. I have seen these kind of mistakes before in the past by Xbox, and they very rarely turn out to be anything concrete. If World of Warcraft was to get a console version for Xbox, it really wouldn't be announced so randomly in a simple newsletter. That being said, I'm still hopeful that we'll see this game eventually, as last year it was mentioned that an Xbox version of World of Warcraft is still being discussed internally, and now that that IP belongs to Microsoft, I'm sure it's only a matter of time before this finally happens. Xbox did actually respond to this though a bit later on this week, confirming that the mention of Game Pass is being incorrect. What I'll do is I'll chuck the message on screen now that Xbox actually put out. They stated that this was a mistake on our end and sorry for the confusion. Blizzard's World of Warcraft was accidentally included in a Game Pass email even though it's not available with the service. A correction email will be sent out to those who got the original email soon. Honestly, would you like to see World of Warcraft on Xbox? You'll have to let me know in the comments below. Now, as a bit of more positive news this week, Hazelight Studios, the now famous team behind the likes of A Way Out and It Takes Two, has revealed that its upcoming game Splitscreen has officially gone gold. The studio has wrapped up core development on the co-op Xbox title and is now laser focused on the game's launch in March of this year. To accompany this announcement, we also have a brand new co-op trailer, which I've thrown on screen for you now. As you would expect from Hazelight, Splitscreen continues to look quite remarkable, and I'm very excited to get my hands on this game in just over a month's time. Splitscreen looks set to provide tons of gameplay variety as Hazelight's next outing. Seriously, pretty much every single screenshot I see looks like an entirely different experience. Again, I cannot wait to get my hands on this, so stay tuned to the channel to hear my review upon launch. 6 months or so after it was first introduced, the initial Worlds update for No Man's Sky, Hello Games is back at it again with another huge overhaul for its Xbox Game Pass adventure. No Man's Sky Worlds Part 2 is now out on Xbox, and again is another big old update from Hello Games. players can expect new stars, new stories, and new classes of planets, including gas giants, water worlds, and ruined civilizations. Along with that, you'll also have new terrain shapes and biomes, and a total overhaul of lighting systems, improved water rendering, and faster loading times, along with just so much more. In all honesty, if you're interested in trying out this note update, it's probably worth reading through Hello Games' huge blog on the World's Part 2. It contains so many improvement and changes that it's hard to list them all on screen now. At the time of posting though, No Man's Sky does remain an Xbox Game Pass title, and the value that Hello Games has brought to this experience over the years is utterly staggering. No Man's Sky didn't have the easiest launch at all, but has developed into one of the most accomplished adventures here on Xbox, and clearly the team really isn't done with the updates just yet. In a bit of interesting news for some of you eager fans this week, Microsoft has released its earnings report for the quarter ending December 31st to today, which highlights how the business has performed during that quarter compared to the same period before. In terms of Xbox, Microsoft did mention the business highlight is the 2% increase in content and services revenue, and that is said to have been driven by growth in Xbox Game Pass. Previously, this area actually grew by a whopping 61% back in FY25 Q1. As expected, hardware revenue unfortunately suffered another decline by 29%, while gaming revenue actually declined by 7%. Back in October, Microsoft predicted the results for Xbox in FY25 Q2 very accurately, as it really turns out. It turns out that Team Green did expect Xbox content and services revenue growth to be relatively flat, but the one main highlight is the massive launch of Call of Duty, where they saw the most Game Pass subscribers ever seen on a launch day. Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella has actually now gone in a bit more detail as well, revealing how Game Pass has set a new quarterly record in terms of revenue, growing its PC subscriber base by over 30%. The two games that have recently helped increase the subscriber count are, as you guessed it, Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. Nadella also iterated the tech giant's plans with its gaming division, which is focused on improving the profitability of the business in order to better position it for long-term growth driven by higher content margins and platform services. Honestly, the continual increases we're seeing to content and services these days, combined with the reduction in hardware revenue, suggest Xbox's multi-platform push could work out very well for the brand in the long run. We'll just have to wait and see, and I'll update you more as this story goes on. Now, I have said it before and I will say it again, GTA 6 could be the start of the Xbox Series X and S generation, especially considering how long that we've waited for it to release. However, that could also mean it'll be quite taxing on current gen hardware, and a former Rockstar dev has now come out and said that 60 FPS is unlikely on console. Chatting on the Kiwi Talks podcast via Games Radar, former Rockstar animator Mike York says that he thinks they'll be shooting for a sort of 60 FPS with GTA 6, and that from their experience they're going to squeeze every little freaking thing they can out of it and then optimize later for 60 frames. His experience comes from, well, multiple years on the inside over at the famous GTA studio. York actually worked on both GTA 5 and Red Dead Redemption 2, and although he's no longer there, the former dev reckons that only post-launch optimization, an AI upscaler, or potentially PC release will bring 60 FPS gameplay to GTA 6. This honestly does make a lot of sense to me, even if we still don't know exactly what the team has got up its sleeve. GTA 6 will be Rockstar's first current-gen product using adapted technology, and you've got to remember that even the last-gen Red Dead Redemption 2 isn't 60 FPS on the Xbox Series X and S. Ultimately, we'll have to wait and see later on this year, as it's still scheduled to hit current-gen consoles sometime in 2025. Closing out this week, we did have some more news on another game actually ditching the Xbox exclusivity arena and now going to PS5 in a month or two. Xbox developer Playground Games have announced that Forza Horizon 5 is officially launching on PlayStation 5, with the open world racer set to move over in spring of this year. First released in late 2021 for all the Xbox consoles and PC, Forza Horizon 5 took players to Horizons Mexico in the series' 5th open world outing on Xbox. Of course, this marks Forza's debut on PlayStation, having been an Xbox console exclusive ever since Microsoft built this franchise to compete with Gran Turismo. Personally, I don't really have any issue with this. It being available everywhere doesn't change our experience with this game. In fact, it only prospects the studio and in turn Microsoft, giving them and the games even more reach. Xbox is clearly moving in this direction, and some games launching simultaneously with some being exclusive, and very little, if anything, being off the table. They've again made no secret of this over the years, and is not a huge deal, and despite what a few believe, it's definitely not going to be the end of Xbox. Further, I will just add that I'm kind of glad that it's going. PlayStation and likely the Switch 2 are getting one hell of a good racer to enjoy, and hopefully it means more money can be put into Forza Horizon 6, which no doubt will come out first on Xbox and day one onto Xbox Game Pass. You'll have to let me know your thoughts and opinions on this move in the comments section down below. As a quick reminder this week though, we saw the release of 4 day one titles on Xbox Game Pass, and all of them saw some moderate to great success upon release and are definitely worth diving into. First up, we saw the release of Orcs Must Die Death Trap. This launched on Tuesday to pretty average reviews all round though. This is essentially taking the trap-based tower defense game we know and love and adding a roguelike twist to it. I have personally been playing this one and a review will be as shortly on the channel, but I would say it's probably the worst in the series in terms of balancing, but the fun factor with friends is where it truly shines. If you want a more casual co-op-based game, then it's definitely worth diving into, and it debuted at a 70 on OpenCritic with very middling reviews. We then had a release on the very same day, being that of Eternal Strands from newly set up studio Yellow Brick Games. This currently sits at a 75 on OpenCritic, with 60% of critics actually recommending this one. IGN gave it a 7, stating the following: "Full of ambition and packed with great boss battles, Eternal Strands doesn't land every shot it takes, but it lands enough to make it an impressive action RPG. If you're interested in checking this one out, then it is available with your Xbox Game Pass subscription for Ultimate and PC players right now." A bit higher up on the review side this week and launching onto Game Pass as of yesterday was Sniper Elite Resistance. Now, this one is a sort of sidestep in the franchise, actually following a new protagonist called Harry Hawker and set in occupied France. This one is more of the same really, and if you love the action and sniping of Sniper Elite 5, then you'll definitely need to check this one out. It debuted to a strong 74 on OpenCritic, and one of the highest scores was from Eurogamer, stating the following: "Sniper Elite Resistance may not innovate as much on the series' standard blueprint, but it's still a challenging, rewarding, and deeply satisfying adventure." Then we had a final release dropping today, and that is none other than Citizen Sleeper 2 Starward Vector. This is the follow-up to the first critically acclaimed installment, and it looks to be doing absolute wonders as critics are in love with this new entry. It is currently sitting at a very strong 86, with 97% of reviewers recommending this one. The guys and gals over at Nintendo Life gave this one a very high 9 out of 10, and they stated the following: "Citizen Sleeper 2 is an excellent example of a polished sequel, continuing all the things that made its predecessor a beloved indie darling, while building upon and expanding those systems with some new and interesting ideas of its own. The decision-driven narrative, tense RPG systems, and incredible soundtrack all come together to make for a game that is almost impossible to put down once you get pulled in." If you're interested in jumping into Citizen Sleeper 2, then you can grab it right now with your Xbox Game Pass subscription. I honestly might have to jump into this one for the very first time, just to see what all the hype's about. So that wraps up this week's Xbox news. As a reminder, 6 games are leaving Game Pass today, so make sure you check them out and purchase them with your discount before they leave forever. The following games are Anuchard, Broforce, Darkest Dungeon, Death's Door, Maquette, and Serious Sam Siberian Mayhem. As mentioned already, all 6 of these games are discounted by at least 20% if you're interested in grabbing them for your Xbox library, and some may even be given an additional discount next Tuesday when the Xbox sales go live. So, what are your thoughts on Forza Horizon 5, and have you jumped into any of the new Xbox Game Pass games? Let me know in the comments below. Remember to like the video if you enjoyed, and subscribe down below for more Xbox content every single day. Let me know if you want to see more news videos like this every single Friday, as it's a brand new format to our channel. Whilst here, wanting to check out this video on screen now, covering the top 15 games coming to Xbox and Xbox Game Pass this February. From Avowed to Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, there is a ton to be excited about next month.